What's up, everybody? We are here on Wednesday for our Asked Him stream. We are somewhat on time. Almost missed that. We were setting up some new workstations out in the office area of the shop and had to be out there to make sure things... Okay, wasn't on straight. Had to be out there to make sure things were going smoothly. So, need you guys to ask questions in the chat. I only see one so far. Yeah, he is, the puppy is out. Come here. Do you want to say hi? Come here. Up. Come on. Come on, you lazy little shit. Get up. Come here. Come here. Come on. Up. Come on. Up. Oh, there we go. He's tired. He was sleeping in his crate. Oh, he's getting too heavy to do it. I'm not gonna be able to pick him up much longer, because we're over 50 pounds at this point. So there's the baby. He's out today. He's been doing really good. So, and I'll make sure we get your treats. Do you like treats? Yeah. Do you like treats? Yeah. All right. Be a good boy on the stream, and then we'll give you treats at the end. How's that? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, can you touch? Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. You get praise. That's your reward. So, anyways, how's everybody doing today? These streams, you guys ask me questions about your 3D printer. Try to stick with FDM ones. I do not know resin printing that well yet. My goal is next week to have our resin printers online. I've got 6 of them here, and I'd like to start playing with them to do more prototyping and just fun prints in general. I did finally get all my my trays done for my humidor. It's sitting right there right now, just cycling and leveling out. But the wood trays worked out great. They actually are picking up a little bit of the humidity, and I can tell that because when I put the 2 new ones in that I just printed, they were obviously dry. The humidity actually dropped even after taking into account the door closing, but they're soaking up the humidity, which is why I wanted to use the wood filament so it can pull in some of the humidity to act as kind of like a buffer inside the unit. So last thing I have to do is put my cedar shims in there just to have that nice cedar smell, which is good, and then stock it. So everything's been working great. Yeah, there is, since we are switching to how we're doing the broadcast here, we are streaming out at a upscaled 4K signal, so you guys get a better 1080 picture on your end, especially when we start going into printers and stuff. But the only downside is it looks like YouTube doesn't allow you to do a low latency stream when you're doing the 4K. So, but in order for these streams to go, I need you guys to ask questions for me to answer. So, I do have a couple of updates because I know people have been asking about certain things being out of stock. And we did just get a shipment in of things that were out of stock. And I can let you guys know what those were. I'm just going to my purchase orders here on our site and checking to see what Danielle added to stock. So we've got 0.25, 0.4, and 0.6 MK8 nozzles in. The 0.25s and the 0.4s were brass. The 0.6s were the steels. We've got the aluminum extruders back in stock. The red metal ones, just your standard type extruder that's an all metal construction to replace like the plastic ones. We got tough belt back in, tough tube, V6 easy flows in 0.4, 0.6, and 0.8, and we also restocked on the Easy Flow 0.4 MK8 nozzle. Our Easy Flows are a copper-plated nozzle, so they're really great. The heat transfer is excellent on them, even better than brass, and you can run abrasives through them, and they don't wear out. So that's everything that was stocked today. They're already available on the site to order, so if you guys are waiting for any of those, they're available in stock, and they will ship on our normal shipping schedule. If you had the items on your wish list that were out of stock, the site will start sending out emails in the next hour or two. It does them in batches as we restock products. So also added today, because we talked about doing it, and the customer was asking in a live chat today, Mark, I don't know if he's watching. He sometimes pops in here. was asking about multi-packs of the Easy Plugs. So if you guys have a lot of devices you want to automate, a lot of printers you want to control, we have a 4-pack of Easy Plugs on the site, and you can select either for the standard ones or for the Plus version with the power monitoring. You can't mix and match. It was too much of a pain. But if you want to save, it's 10% off. So if you're going to buy 4 Easy Plugs, you can buy a pack of 4 and save 10%. So those are on the site as well, and we did a post about that, and it's out there. So if you guys are looking for a good deal on the plugs, you can save some money if you're buying 4 at a time. So, and you can buy multiple 4-packs if you'd like. Let's see here what we got for questions. And I think we're going to be a good boy. He laid down. So that'll be good. I've been trying to leave him out more and not have him tethered. I don't know if you guys noticed that. I don't know if you guys noticed that my office is a little bit cleaner. Shout out to my buddy Bruce, who's my assistant here. I have him 3 days a week. We're getting everything organized and cleaned up, and then we're going to be pushing hard next week on new videos. So, and not live streams, videos, like actual shooting them, editing them, and uploading them. The first two videos we're doing are the Ender 6 LCD screen conversion and an updated one for the Easy ABL Pro, and he's going to be giving me a hand with that. So it should make everything go a lot faster having an extra set of hands here instead of trying to do everything myself. So, and I wanted to say thanks to the guys who signed up for the YouTube membership, because that was one of the things that allowed us to hire a part-time person. Like, we didn't quite hit the goal we were looking to, but we got close enough where I said, you know what? I know my buddy, I've known Bruce for 10 years now, but he's very well versed in a wide range of things, and he was looking for work. So I said, you know what? Do you want to come work for us? You'll be doing a little bit of everything. I just need help. So Todd said my wife heard you and yelled no before I could order. Okay, Todd's wife, Buzzkill. If you want, Todd, when you put the order, put a note in there, and we can make it look like you want a giveaway. Shh. I'm just saying. Just let us know. Put a note on there. I'm sure Danielle will be happy to, instead of putting the actual invoice in there, just put like a thanks or congrats on winning the giveaway. Would that work? Anyways, let's move into the questions. Looks like I see a lot of chat, so I hope there are questions in here. So I'm going to scroll back up. I saw someone asking a question. I'm going to try my best because he hasn't given a ton of information, but I can go over what could be causing this. So he said he's got an MKS Robin E3P board, and he's having issues with the BL Touch deploying. Now, if you're having issues with it not deploying at all, that would be something related to the pin setting that you're using. So a BL Touch has 5 wires in total. There's 2 grounds, there's a control signal, and then there's the ZN stuff signal, and then the 3.3 to 5 volt input. So the control signal is what actually communicates with the BL Touch to deploy and stow the pin. If that is not configured correctly in the firmware, then it's not going to do that. And we usually, with Marlin, if you enable BL Touch, it will give you a menu inside I believe it's the configuration menu, where it will give you options to control the BL Touch, including a deploy, stow, and a self-test, and even a reset. One of the other things you can also do is check to see what voltage mode the BL Touch is in. If you're not sure, you can have Marlin override it and just go right in, and let's say it was in the software mode or the 5 volt mode, you could override that. And I'm going to pull up the source code here because I can tell you exactly what that would be. Because I had one where it came on a printer and they had it in a non-standard mode, and I ended up having to override it to get it to function correctly. And I'm pulling up, it's in the configuration ADV, and that would be the force mode set. So in the firmware, you can set that option, BL Touch force mode set, and then that will force it into the mode that your firmware is set up for. Now, you only want to do that once. So enable the option, compile the firmware, upload it to the board, turn it on, and the BL Touch light will actually blink to confirm that it received a setting change, because the BL Touch actually has a little chip in there that's got an EEPROM to store what mode it's running in. So I would do that just to cover all the bases and make sure it's in the operating mode that your firmware is set up to use. Because if your firmware is set to use, mode 1, I'm just using arbitrary numbers, but mode 1, but the actual probe itself is set to use mode 2, it's not going to function correctly. And that force mode set is going to have the firmware send out a pulse at the correct interval to the probe when it starts up, to then override whatever was in there with the setting that the firmware is using. So that's what I had to do to get my the BL Touch I use on my testing printer, because I have a printer here that's set up. It's got our EasyABL and a BL Touch, and I just unscrew which one I want to test with for doing firmware testing, board testing, that kind of stuff. It's just a printer that I use to test things that I don't actually print much with it. But I had to do that because there was a probe that came, I think it was from my Ender 5 Plus, but it was in some mode that it wasn't working, and I had to do the force mode set, and it's been fine ever since. So you can try that, and then just the basics, check your connections. Make sure you have everything connected correctly. The ZN stop signal goes to the ZN stop signal pin on your board, your ground to ground on both ground pins, your 5-volt line, or it could be 3.3. On that board, it's probably 3.3. The E3P is a 32-bit. But you want to make sure it's got the power of the ground. Your control signal is set correctly in the firmware, and you're connected to the right pin that's set in the firmware. So, yeah. Let's move on to the next one. Jonathan Bartz, how many rolls of filament did you end up having? I know it was over 100 something. I got to check the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet has them listed, but it doesn't total up the columns, so I was going to do that. There's a lot. So, yeah. Let's see here. Also, another thing to note before we move on to the next thing, coming back to the BL Touch, if you have a BL Touch clone, they're just not as good. If you're dead set on owning a BL Touch and you don't want to go with something like our EasyABL, get a genuine BL Touch. The BL Touch clones, like there's companies that sell like the 3D Touch, they call them, or just generic ones. They just don't perform as well. They're not built as well. Just make sure you're supporting the original people that made that. That BL Touch is patented. So if you're buying a clone of a BL Touch, you're supporting patent infringement. And they're a small company as well that made the BL Touch. They're out of Korea. So make sure you're getting a genuine one. It could save you a lot of headaches. I've seen way too many of the knockoffs cause problems, and they get a real one. They're like, oh, it's working. So let's see. I'm checking the chat here. Where's our next question? Rod is asking, he said, I'm tired of my hotbed power, my Crowley CR10X or CRX wires breaking an inch or two from the factory solder joints. I would recommend putting a strain relief. I don't believe Creality ships strain reliefs with most of their printers these days. But some of the early ones did not have any strain relief. I will let you know that I do replace some of the bed wires on my stuff, especially if it starts fraying or it just starts getting weak. The only thing that sucks about soldering to beds is because they're an aluminum plate. If you have a standard soldering iron, it's probably not going to be up to the task, and you're going to have poor solder joints. I have one of those old Weller, it's like 100-watt chisel tip one. People usually use them for like stained glass or even water pipe. Big old tip, but it's 100 watts of heat. And I found that works really well for soldering the beds because it's just got such a large thermal mass, and it's got the 100-watt heater in there that it has no problem powering through. I've seen way too many people where they post pictures like, I replaced the bed wires on my CR10. How's my soldering? And it's just like, it's terrible. It's cold solder joints just because that bed is sinking the heat. One thing you can do if you don't have a higher end Weller is take a heat gun and heat the plate up as hot as you can stand, because then it's going to reduce how much heat it's sinking away from the iron. I don't use the heat gun method. It's something that I have seen people use with success if you're able to heat the plate up. But in my opinion, the best way to do it is to use a very high wattage solder iron. Now, even my Hakko here, this base station put out up to 120 watts with its chisel tip, is able to do beds. But my older FX 888 Hakko, which is like I think it's a 60 watt iron, just couldn't do it. So, yeah. But strain relief, and you can go up to a next size wire, which would be good because I think Crowley typically uses like 14 gauge wire. if I'm replacing bed wires on a DC bed, I typically put 12 gauge silicone wire on there. Silicone wire is going to be a lot more flexible, and the 12 gauge is going to give you less voltage drop from the power supply to the bed. So it could potentially even reduce your heat up time. So, but you got to make sure if you're changing those wires out that you solder them on correctly. You don't have any cold solders, and you use an iron that can actually solder it correctly without all of its heat getting sunk away from that bed. So, yeah, basically I would change the wires out to 12 gauge and put a strain relief on there. So there's printable strain reliefs for the CR10 that should fit the CRX bed. Our solid bed mount kits that we sell, those will fit the CRX as well, and those have a strain relief integrated into them. But you can also find the strain relief for the CR10 bed on Thingiverse, and those would work really well. So, but changing it out to some nice silicone cable, if you're going to go through trouble changing out, just go to 12 gauge. Should make it so that those wires last a long time. I have 12 gauge ones soldered to my CR10 right here, and that's been using the same set of wires for 2.5 years, and that printer's got a lot of usage on it. So, let's see here. Nick Bowers is asking, how would it be to switch out my X and Y belt for lead screws on a CR10 S5? Don't bother. I've seen guys do that, and you severely limit how fast you can print, and you introduce a whole different type of ringing and backlash. I don't think it would be worth doing it, to be honest. Do whatever you want. It's your machine. I wouldn't put the time into it. So, R Mills is asking, am I going to experiment with Klipper? And do I have the pinout for the Easy Board? So no, I'm not touching Klipper. I don't have the time to do that. But the pinout for the Easy Board, if you look in the Marlin source code or our firmware source code, it's under source pins LPC 1769. So those are all folder names. And then there's a Easy Board pins file that has all the pin numbers listed for the board that you'll need. So you basically would generate a Klipper board config file and just cross-reference with the pins file. So those are all publicly accessible online. Just look at the source code for our firmware or Marlin, and all the pinout for our board is in there. So let's see here. Maker Matrix says, what Creality boards have a CH340 serial converters? My older ones seem to have the FT232. As far as I know, Creality started switching to the CH340 USB to serial chips on the version 114 Melzi boards and higher. I don't know if they're putting them on their 2560 boards. I haven't looked at one of their 2560 boards in a while, and we don't carry them anymore. I don't know if their 32-bit ones use them. Let me see. Yes, their 32-bit boards use those as well, the 422 and the 427. So they did that probably to cut costs. The FT232Rs are also very widely cloned, and the clone ones are bad. I actually would prefer to see them use a CH340 because that is a Chinese USB serial converter. So I'd rather them use a genuine Chinese chip than a Chinese copy of the FT232R. Because FTDI actually has a thing in their drivers for Windows where if it detects that it's a clone chip, it just kills it. So, yeah, anyways. Tommy, I was asking, how soon do you replace the nozzle on your printer? It really depends. I mean, I've gotten years out of them. We were actually, Joe and I were actually talking about the print farm that maybe we just have a maintenance plan where once a year we go through and change the nozzles just because, you know, over time they are going to get worn out. They could have partial clogs that you don't notice. The answer is you change the nozzle when you start seeing problems, especially if you're a home user. I'm not opposed to replacing the nozzles just once a year on a maintenance schedule, just because if we have like something where a nozzle's got a partial clog or it's not flowing correctly, that just changing the nozzle on a maintenance schedule would help reduce issues related to that. So, Let's see. Ram Design says, I've been running a Chiron for larger prototype. Do you have an EasyFlex bed and magnet sheet for a Chiron? I think the Chiron will take the 410 by 410. I have one sitting over there, so I'm just going to go measure it real quick. I'll be right back. And if you guys don't have one of these, a metric tape measure. They're fantastic. Okay, so that's interesting. The Chiron bed is 410, but it's 410 by 430. So, and I literally just forgot. Oh, it's 430 on wide, but the print area is I think the print area on that one is only 400 by 400. Anycubic Chiron print area. Let's see. Yeah, it's only 400 by 400. So you could do the 410 plate on there. And like what I did on the Ender 6, because I don't have a 290 by 290 plate, which is what the physical bed size is, but its print area is only 250 by 250. I took the 260 by 260 and put it on there. And it covers my whole print area. So on that printer, I would just do the 410 by 410 and then put the magnet down that covers the print area. So the easiest way to determine that would be to home your X and Y, and I believe that printer homes to the front left at the 00 position, and then move it all the way to the 400. Excuse you. Move it all the way to the 400 by 400 position, and then that will give you your back corner. So as long as your print area is covered, that's all that matters. Put your magnet down that in the spot on the bed that covers the whole print area. Obviously on the X, the 410 is going to completely cover it. But the Y on that I just measured is 430. So, but you won't need the clamps or anything. I do plan on delving into that in about 2 weeks, bringing that printer back out here because I do want to start doing work on here. Just trying to get caught up now that we got more staff. Trying to get everything caught up. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that you guys don't see, which is why I'm always so all over the place. Let's see here. So Sab T is asking, I'm set on a Tronxy X5 SA Pro. I'll be honest with you, I hate Tronxy printers. And I'll tell you why. The parts they use, they're really, really, really low quality. Just on principle, I will not buy their machines because they have never complied with the GPL licensing, and I still avoid printer companies that do not comply with the GPL. So, and the main thing is there's so many good printer brands out there that make better quality printers for just a little bit more that I don't think Tronxy is worth looking at unless you can get a stupid good price on it and you're basically going to gut it and use the bare essentials like the motors, the frame, that kind of stuff, the heated bed. But you know, I wouldn't put a ton of work into a Tronxy. If you want a Core XY, I have been very happy with the Ender 6. It's been a solid machine. So, but yeah, I know they're stock boards. They're those Chi2 they're not, is it Chi2 box? It's made by the same company that makes the Chi2 boards for the resin printers. They're not very great from what I've heard, and I don't believe you can run Marl on them. One of the guys in our Discord server was converting his, and he ended up just changing the board out. So, let's see. Any other questions here? Which do I prefer? A drag chain, expanded braided sleeve, or something else for wiring harnesses? I got a mixture of both. Like the Daedalus, this has the actual cable chain. Hang on. Oh, muted that just in time. Scared the dog though. Anyways, It really depends. I've got some machines here where I did the spiral wrap. I actually really like it. Some people don't like how it looks. I don't mind how it looks. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I like how functional it is because you can break wires out at any point on that wrap. But, I mean, it's really a personal preference. I think drag chains, a lot of people implement them wrong, where they end up adding more drag to the the axis that they're moving. If I have a way to, especially if I have a PTFE tube to secure wires to as like a guide, I much prefer to use like the spiral wrap or even the split loom stuff. So the split loom stuff Creality likes to use, and it's kind of growing on me. So yeah. Let's see. Dan Adams, are you going to Midwest Rep Rap Fest? I don't know. I don't have, basically, the people that usually go with us to help run things are not available when they're having it. And they, as far as I know, don't quote me on this. This is just what I've heard from other people, is basically all the companies that are not in the US, like E3D and Prusa and all them, and I think even Matter Hackers, they all are not going. And they also limited attendance, so I don't know if we're going to go. I feel like it's not going to be worth the cost and the time. Hey! Leave it. I don't think it's going to be worth the cost and the time for us to go, especially when, one of the main reasons I go is to see everybody, and if most of the people are not going to be there, is there really a point in going? We've already paid for our sponsorship. We paid last year. I don't know. I gotta have a talk with everybody, because I don't know if it's gonna be worth going this year. I don't think there's gonna be a ton of stuff there, because I think a lot of people bailed. I'd be surprised if you see anybody that's not from the U.S. going. I don't know. I'm kind of more leaning towards the side of not going, maybe just making an appearance, but it's not worth it for us to drag all of our stuff out and go there, especially if I don't have anybody to help me man the booth. So, yeah, I don't know. Let's see here. Blank says, Ender 6 needs strain relief on its bed. Yeah, I do agree. I'm going to have to do something on mine. Can you not? No. Stop being an attention whore. Do you see this? Boop. 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 Let's see. Let's see what other people are saying in chat. Yeah, I'm still up in the air on Murph. I don't know. It's just, it feels like it's gonna be a lot of work for not a lot of people there, and not be able to see the people I want to see. So we'll see. Let's move on through the questions here. Get back on track. Stephen Goodman is asking, does the EasyABL Pro require different setup than the original EasyABL? Not really. It's the same concept. You give it power, you hook it up to your Z-end stop, you mount it, you calibrate it. It's easier to install with the new one, because if on the original EasyABLs, if your Z-end stop wasn't showing a triggered or open, you'd have to flip the wires. We actually have that on a switch now, so it'll do it on the board. But if you've installed the original EasyABL, the Pro is going to be a pretty similar experience. The thing I say is just go on our website and go look through the installation guide. A lot of it will be similar. The calibration distances are the same. The firmware setup's the same. So, but you can go directly to the guide by going to easyablguide.th3dstudio.com, and that'll go there. So, let's see here. Did my chat jump? I'm gonna check here. It might have, and I might not have noticed. I'm usually pretty good. Oh yeah, it looks like it did. Let's see here. Yeah, it did jump on me. So Mithrin says, did you have to adjust your bed on the Ender 6? I got EasyABL. I still can't get a decent level prints. The bed mesh is showing a differences of 0.5 or 0.5 millimeter amongst the corners. I didn't have to adjust it. I have it solid mounted. I have all the eccentrics adjusted really well. It did take me a while playing with it to get it actually flat. I would also check your, like the core XY structure, make sure that's not tilted or skewed. But it's been working fine. I actually don't even have to baby step on that machine. So the easy way to see if your EasyABL is the issue, whether it's set up right or it's broken, would be to run the M48 test. If the M48 test comes back with a value under 0.01, then it's going to be something else on the machine. Over tightening the belts too, if the belts are too tight, can also skew things. So, but you can, if you're, as long as you're within the warranty period still, you get technical support. So email our support team and they'll be able to guide you towards the right direction. Send them pictures of what your first layer looks like. Do the M48 test. If you're not sure what the M48 test is, it's built into the LCD. You just go to the LCD and there's M48 test option under prepare. Is it the prepare menu or motion? They keep changing the names of the menu structure, and I have a hard time recalling it from memory. If I have it in front of me, I can navigate to it. But yeah, check the M48. If the M48 is good, you can rule out the sensor being an issue, and then start looking at mechanical things in the machine. So I already answered that one. There's a clipper. Okay, I didn't jump too much. Nozzle, Chiron, we went through those. Let's see here. I'm not reading that one because this guy has a really terrible name. Let's see here. Crystal got her JG Maker Magic. Am I able to easily flash new firmware on it? Well, once we have our firmware out, which will probably be in about 3 to 4 weeks, I got to finish the 208 update. Then yeah, you should be able to update that one right over USB. But I cannot add new printers until we get our new 208 update out, and the 208 update will be out when it's done. So, Jamie Santiago is saying, what would you recommend on how to level your bed when you have a raised center compared to the corners? Tape on the edges to raise level the center. He's got a longer K1. Yeah, I've seen people do like aluminum foil around the edges to raise it up and then a piece of glass on the top. But the ideal thing to do would be put a bed leveling sensor on there like the EasyABL or the BL Touch. The longer NK1, LK1, is, I'm familiar with that name. I'm looking it up right now. I know we don't support that printer with firmware, and I'm looking at it. This has got a touchscreen, so we probably won't. I don't have that machine. So, I mean, your option to see if somebody else or the manufacturer has one for like a BL Touch or an EasyABL, but I would do a bed leveling on there unless you can get a new plate. But your main option would be to, shim it up with something. Aluminum foil would probably be what I would use. I've seen people use like masking tape. But I put a bed leveling sensor on the printers and call it a day, so I don't have to worry about it. So I'm just looking through questions right here because I kind of jumped around. Vickers is asking about keeping a glass bed due to warping. Can you put an Easy Flex on top of a glass bed, or is that too thick for heating? I would not recommend it. While you technically could, I would not recommend it, just because you're going to be adding a lot of mass to that build plate. Yeah. Let's see here. Where's the next question? I'm looking through the chat. Give me a sec. This dog is shoving his ball underneath my chair. Spot On asks, what extruder and how do you run on your Ender 5 Pluses? I have one Ender 5 Plus. I have the stock hot end, but I have our tough tube fitted, and I actually put our 0.6 Easy Flow nozzle on there. And then for the extruder, I'm running our tough extruder. So in general, I usually keep the stock hot ends unless I have like a catastrophic failure with them. I do have quite a few machines, though, with our tough hot end, which is a V6 style hot end. But unless I have a catastrophic failure with the stock one, I'll usually change the tubing out to our tough tube and use it until I have a problem with it. So, but it's been a great combo. The 0.6 Easy Flow allows me to get a lot more flow rate out of there and do stuff faster with it. I think a 0.6 nozzle, if you guys are going to go up a nozzle size, 0.6 is a good compromise between size and not losing detail. Going up to 0.8, I got one machine here with a 0.8, and you do lose some detail with a 0.8 if you're doing smaller stuff, but if you're printing larger things, the 0.8 is actually really nice. So, let's see here. Okay, there's the Rep question, or the Rep Rap Fest question, which we talked about that. Let's see here. There's Steve Goodman's question. I'm going back here. Oh, there it goes. It jumped. Let's see. It jumped a lot. I'm sorry. Remo, can you not go get your ball? Okay. Moving up. All right, there we go. When is a review and the teardown on the Aquila? I want to do it on Friday. That's what I would like to do is on this Friday. So, it's still right there. But I think our internet line's working well. I don't think you guys are having any issues. No one said we're having any problems. So, I think our Comcast is finally stable. And if we do have issues with, the Comcast, I've got a T-Mobile 5G right here. It's a 5G modem that's hooked up to my router on the second WAN, and that's more than enough to stream on. So we have solid backups now, and the main line's fixed. Let's see. Another question about the Voxelab. Like I said, I'm shooting for Friday. I got to schedule it. Problem is there's too much other stuff going on, and it's going to be in the evening. It's not going to be during the day. So let's see. Martin Miller's asking, do I recommend enabling the power resume feature in Unified 1 or get a good battery backup? I don't recommend using the power resume feature because it just, one, if it does work, it's still kind of janky. You're not going to have a very clean resume. Especially if the power goes out, you can lose position on your motors and it doesn't resume correctly a lot of the time. Sometimes it won't even write the file at the right time. So depending on when the power cuts off, you might be able to resume, you might not. It's kind of a janky thing, and it's more of a feature that is just on, like, Creality came up with that feature. It's just there as another selling point. It doesn't work very well, but it's there. It technically has it. We use battery backups on all our machines. There's one for this printer. There's one for the two there. I've got two more over there for all these other machines. Or actually, there's three over there. Just get a nice UPS. I've had good luck with buying refurbished CyberPower 1500 VA UPSs from Tiger Direct. They're usually about $100, which is really, really good. We have probably about a dozen of them here, and knock on wood, I haven't had any of them go out, and they come with a 1-year warranty. Like $100 for a 1500 VA is a pretty good deal, and you can usually run 3 printers, like 3 Ender 3s on one 1500 VA UPS, so which is what we have in our print farm. So, but if you have a printer that pulls a lot more current than Ender 3, you're not going to be able to put a bunch of bigger machines that pull more power. So, let's see. Looking through the chat. This dog is just, you can't see him. He's like off screen here, giving me his ball. So I keep throwing it into the garage. I don't know if there's a maker fair. 3D Printing Professor is asking if there's a maker, or he said if there's a maker fair in October, he might be there. I don't know if they're still doing a maker fair. Didn't that company fold or something? There was something where they folded up. I could be wrong. What battery backup do I recommend? I stick with APC and CyberPower. They're all pretty good as long as you get a name brand. So, Let's see here. Dominic is asking, what's the best way to remove smooth PEI sheet from the Easy Flex? Some say solvent, some say soak in detergent and water overnight. I've always heated it up on the build plate and then slowly peeled it off. And then you can use a solvent like acetone is really good at removing adhesive. If you leave acetone on there and let it soak in the adhesive, you can literally just like take a scraper, like a putty knife, and scrape it off. But just take your time. Don't try to pull it fast. It's going to take a little while. So, do solid bed mounts have to be shimmed to get it fairly close, or just wing it with auto level? No, you just put them on there and let the leveling take care of it. Some people do shim them. You can if you really want to. Just make sure if you're using washers, especially metal ones, that you're not going to touch any of the PCB traces, or put the shims on the bottom of the spacer that is up against your carriage. Or extrusion, depending on how your bed's mounted. So you can if you want. You don't need to, but the less work your Z has to do, the better. There we go. Chat jumped again. I'm just getting back to my chat. Here we go. What's the next one after here? So Joshua May says, I picked up the EasyFlex 2. I'm still having issues with edges raising up. What's the best way to figure out the correct temps for my filament? Could it be something else? So the easiest way, and I don't know what filament you're printing with. If you are still in the chat, go ahead and post what filament you're printing with. But I'm just going to cover the bases. So PLA and PETG, they can warp, but they're not as common as other materials like ABS. ABS, you have to have an enclosure. If you're printing ABS, you're going to get warping no matter what, adhesion promoters you put on the bed. It's just a material that shrinks. But I do have, like, for example, when I was printing the trays for my DIY humidor, I had to print it, even though it's PLA, in an enclosed machine because it's a big flat part, and even though it's PLA, it's still going to want to curl up. So, like, even after I put Vision Miner on her, funny thing was, the Vision Miner stuck the PLA to the plate, but because the warping was so strong, it actually pulled the plate up. So if you're printing a large item, you're probably going to need an enclosure even with PLA, and you can makeshift something, just put a box over it, don't run it unattended, but it's going to shrink if you have a bigger one. PLA does shrink, but not as drastic as ABS. If you're just having a tiny bit, then the Vision Miner would probably clear that up with no problem, but set realistic expectations. If you're having a really large part, like, let me show you how big the part is. Something like this is a large part, okay? This is like 330 by 290. These will want to peel up if you don't print in an enclosure. So this was printed, this is PLA, this is Coax Black PLA. This was printed on my Ender 5 Plus in PLA, but it was in an enclosure. When I printed this without an enclosure, it still warped. So you got to take it into account what you're printing. Now, I can print a bunch of small items on the same plate and not have them warp, but when you have a large mass, especially like this, PLA does shrink, and when it's this big, it can still pull up. So, but if you're printing like a smaller thing, I have noticed that certain PLAs do warp more than others. Like the Chinese brands, I do notice warp more than like the US made stuff. And in that case, something like Vision Miner thrown on top of the plate would work fine. I use Vision Miner on every single one of our machines, and people are like, well, do you need it? No, I don't need it. But in the event that maybe my nozzle hits the print, I have a much less chance of it getting knocked off the plate having the Vision Miner on there. So, that's a product we carry. We don't make it. We just resell it, and we use it for well over a year before we even sold it because we used it in our print farm, and we still use it to this day. But I don't know if you posted what material you're printing with, but I kind of covered everything. So, all right, let's see. But in terms of the bed temperature, typically what I use for PLA, I use 60C for PLA, 80C for PETG, and then ABS you want to be around 100. So, and even if your bed is at 100 with ABS, you still need an enclosure. There's some people that are like, oh, I printed ABS without an enclosure, and it's usually a really small part. If you're printing larger parts, you for sure need an enclosure. So, let's see here. Jeff, I'd love to answer your question, but you're not giving me enough information to go on. Telling me that your printer's doing weird things doesn't give me anything to go on. So can't answer a question that doesn't have enough detail. 3 printing professors asking, here's a question: Ender 3 V2 or the Ender 3 Pro? I'm assuming you mean Ender 3 because you said Ender V2. In my opinion, I like the Ender 3 Pro better. It's a little cheaper, and it comes with the 128/64 screen. I do not like the color screen. A lot of people, you know, see the color screens. That color screen is the same chip as a touchscreen, so it's almost as limited. We change out the LCD on our Ender 3 V2 to the same one that the Ender 3 Pro has. I was thinking the Ender 3 Pro is a little bit easier to work on because not everything is shoved underneath. But I do like on the Ender 3 V2 that the power supply is on the bottom. But if I was picking between the two, I'd go with the 3 Pro just because it's a little cheaper. It comes with a Meanwhile power supply, and it doesn't have that color screen that is still pretty limited. So maybe one day someone will come out with firmware for those where Marlin can interface better with them. But until then, I'm going to keep using the, you know, the tried and true 128/64 style. So let's see here. John Barnes, he said, I think I'm getting a new MK8 nozzle for Ender 3 Pro with the Microsoft hot end on it, like a plated or hardened steel. Wait. Hang on. This is weird. Let me try reading it. He's thinking of getting a new MK8 nozzle from Ender 3 Pro. Oh, he has a Micro Swiss hot end on it. And he's wondering, plated, hardened steel, or stainless steel. I like the plated nozzle. I like the copper plated nozzles because the copper plated nozzles give you the best of both worlds. It gives you wear resistance of steel, but it also gives you better thermal conductivity than brass. The thing is, steel nozzles, we sell both. We sell plated copper and we also sell steel ones. The difference is the steel ones are less than half the price of a plated one because they're just cheaper to manufacture. The downside of steel is it doesn't conduct heat as well as brass. But then you go to the copper plated style, like our Easy Flows that we carry, it conducts heat better than brass to the point where I actually have to lower my print temp by about 10 degrees Celsius because it's so efficient at transferring the heat from the heater block that I end up running the filament too hot, even at the same temperature. But I'll take better thermal conductivity and having to lower my print temp than having to crank the temp up with a steel nozzle. So if you can get a copper plated nozzle, I like those because they're a good all-arounder. They don't have really any trade-offs, whereas like the steel, you have to run a little hotter. In my experience, the steel nozzles, you get a little bit more stringing just because the heat transfer is not as good. But the plated ones also typically will have the filament not stick to it as much as a brass or a steel because it's got that coating over it. Jesus Christ, dog. You are so needy today. Yeah. Dominic says he printed 85A TPU through my Ender 5 Bowden tube using your tough fixture. I didn't think it was possible. Yeah, you can do it. You can do TPU on Bowden systems. I found the best combo was a extruder with a guided filament path like a Bondtech or tough extruder or the E3D Titan or the Hemera, and then our tough tubing. Or something similar to that. Our tough tubing is a competitor to Capricorn. It's the same specs. It's a little cheaper. And the nice thing is when you have the tighter internal diameter, you have less slop in the cable or in the tubing. So it's able to guide it through instead of it bunching up on itself. So I do all my TPU parts for my drones on my Wanhao i3 Mini with a tough extruder and tough tube. And it's actually still got the stock hot end in it. So it's absolutely possible. I usually run it about 20 millimeters a second. I could probably go a little faster, but I don't want to. If you run too fast, even if you have a fully guided path, you can still run the chance of it compressing and binding up. So that's one benefit where a direct drive would be better than a Bowden is if you're printing faster with TPU. So let's see. Doc Brown says he removed, this is more of a statement, but I'll read anyways. He said he removed the stock magnetic bed from the Ender 3 Pro, replaced it with the magnetic one that came with the Easy Flex. What a difference in the magnet strength. Yes, Tor, our support guy, was lazy and didn't replace the magnet on his Ender 5 Pro, and he sent us a picture and he's like, oh yeah, this is why we tell the customers to replace the magnet. I'm going to see if I have that picture here, because it's not just I want you to buy our magnet. It's that it just doesn't work, especially on a larger part. I'm trying to find it. Was it the 6th? No, that was a catastrophic failure someone had. Where was his picture? I thought it was in... Tor, are you in the chat? If you are, post it again, because it's a good example. I should have saved it, because it was a... Oh, here we go. If anyone asks why the stock magnet is not recommended, here, let me open this up. I will show you guys why the stock magnet is not recommended. Oh, he's in there, but it's okay. I found it. So this is why we tell you not to use the stock magnet with our Easy Flex plates, because this is what happens. See, he's got a nice big part, but especially when you combine the heat from the bed with this poor magnet strength, it pops up. The magnets we sell with our Easy Flex kits are a lot stronger than the stock magnets on most printers. So it's not just a marketing thing to get you to buy magnets. It's because this happens. So, yep. It's definitely recommended if you're going to the Easy Flex to replace the magnet. It's a pain sometimes to get it scraped off, but it's worth it to just do it and not have to worry about it. So, let's see. Joe Bob's asked, my flex plate's getting worn. Should I replace the entire flex plate or just apply a new PEI sheet? If I replace just the PEI sheet, should I remove the old one or just apply the new PEI to reverse side? If you don't mind peeling it off, replace the sheet. So less waste than that way. I have a little stack of plates that I'm going to have one of the shop guys go through and peel them all off, and we'll put new surfaces on them. But the only ones like we'll usually toss once they're at the end of their life is like the textured ones, because you can't put a new textured surface on them. We've only had one textured sheet wear out in the print farm, and that one's like almost 2 years old. So I think we got our use out of it. So, but you could, if the sheet that's on there is not like going to prevent it from sitting flat, you could throw it on the rear. Just know that anytime you add a second surface to any flex plate, whether it's ours or another brand, you're going to reduce the strength of the magnet holding the plate down. So you could get to a situation where it will pull up because you're weakening the magnetic strength, because there's something in between the plate and the magnet itself. So if it was me, I would peel it off and put a new surface on, or just get a new plate and set it off to the side until you want to deal with it later. So how do I do a battery backup on a 3D printer? You unplug the printer from the wall, you plug it into the battery side of the battery backup, and then you plug the printer into your wall. And it's that simple. Just make sure that you get a battery backup that has enough wattage capacity. For example, most 1500 VA, that's what you'll see on the UPSs. Most 1500 VA UPSs are rated up to 900 watts of load. And let's say I have one Ender 3, and Ender 3 pulls about 300 watts at peak heating, like the bed and the hot end heating. It's a little bit lower than that. But let's say you get a 1500 VA, 900 watt capacity, load capacity UPS, and use it with one printer. That's not bad, because what's going to happen is, since you're not running the UPS at its full load, you're actually going to get longer runtime. So I would recommend getting the largest capacity UPS you can afford, because worst case scenario, you just get longer runtime out of it. So, and then for future expansion, if you get one that has way more wattage than you actually need at the time, you could then theoretically add one or two more printers onto that same UPS. The goal of the battery backups or UPS systems is, if you got a couple minute power outage, to be able to run your stuff without having to redo the machines. Like here, if the power goes out, knock on wood, it's usually only for maybe a minute. So it's just to get us through those times where the power is out, so we don't have to worry about it. Or if it's a quick flash, we don't lose a print just because the power flashed for, you know, a couple seconds. So, but we are getting towards the end of the stream, which means it's almost time for Doggo Treats. He's just crazy with the damn ball today. So, Uber Slayer's saying, my Ender 6 is always saying there's no filament, even though there is an entire spool. Creality won't send a replacement. Do you know how I fix a filament sensor or bypass? I can't remember which two wires it is, but I think you connect the red to the yellow, and that should make it think that there's filament present. It's either the red to the yellow or the black to the yellow. Yeah, it's that simple. So on that sensor, the red is your 3.3 volt, the black's your ground, and the yellow is the signal. And I can't remember if the sensor is a normally open or normally closed, but basically you want to connect either the red to the yellow and send an M119 command. And if it shows triggered on the filament sensor, then you're good. You're basically going to trick it into thinking that filament's always present. If you do the red to the yellow and it shows open, then it's going to be black to the yellow. And it should show triggered then. So basically when that switch is engaged, it's either connecting the voltage line, your VCC line, which is the 3.3 to the signal, or it's pulling it to ground. It's doing one of those two things. I don't have a sensor off of a machine right now to test with, but it's going to be one of the two situations where either it's going to be red to yellow or black to yellow, and it's pretty simple to find out there. So I'm going to see if there's any questions from any of the YouTube members here, since we are at the 3 o'clock mark. And then we're going to wrap this up. So let's see here. Ram Design says he bit the bullet and purchased two used TiVo Tornados for $100 Canadian. That's a good deal, even for parts. Any source for good aluminum beds? I want to say... No, that's not for that one. If I had to do it, if I had to change the beds on the TiVo Tornadoes, because the stock ones are glass, I would pick up a Creality CR10 Y carriage and a bed and just change it. Because if I remember correctly, the TiVo Tornadoes, but I got rid of ours a while ago. But if I remember correctly, it's the same as a CR10 where it's the 2040 extrusion for the Y. If that's the case, I would just source a Creality Y carriage and a Creality bed and use that instead. You would just need if it's a CR10 bed, you need a 12 volt power supply to power it. So, or just see what you can find. I don't have any sources for like a drop-in replacement TiVo Tornado bed. We looked at making them out of aluminum, but people were too cheap to pay $80 for a made in US aluminum bed that would have actually been flat. So we never ran them. I had 3 prototypes made, and then people were complaining about the price, so we never ran them. So they're like, you know, anyways, let's see. Kevin Cohagen is asking, any idea when the pancake stepper motors may be available again? I just got a new extruder from you guys. I think those might have gotten shipped. Let me double check. Stuff is still coming in. It's just slow. I'm checking here. I thought I had a message from one of our suppliers. That's the shipping loadout. I'm trying to find the one... Maybe they shipped. I'll have to look. I'm not seeing it here in the messages. I'm assuming we'll probably have them in about 2 to 3 weeks. They're just backed up right now from all the Chinese holiday, but they should be caught up soon. But I don't have them. They're ordered. I don't have tracking on them, though. So I'm not sure. If I had to estimate, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks for tops. So Printed Solid also carries stepper motors. I believe they're, what's the name? LDO. They're a LDO reseller. So if you're in a hurry for it, you can check them out. Let's see. Any other questions from the YouTube peoples? No, there are not. So, hey, Remo, do you want a treat? Do you want a treat? It's treat time for Remo. He gets a little doggy biscuit. What are you hacking up? Ew. You just drank water and you just spit water over my leg. You drink the water too fast? Come here. Come here. Can we shake? Come on, you can do it. Shake. Ah, almost. No. Shake. Shake. Nope. Okay, let's try an easy one. Touch. Good boy. There you go. It's right here. It's right here. We're still working on it. We're still working on our commands. Man, he is damp. He just got water, so it's now all over me. Anyways. So, well, I appreciate everybody who stopped by. I hope you guys learned something. We do these streams every Monday at 4 p.m. Central Time and every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time. Keep an eye out for our social media and YouTube here because we will be posting when the VoxLab Aquila is happening. Are we back? It said stream reconnecting. I think that might have been YouTube. Anyways, we do these every Monday at 4 p.m. Central, and we do them again on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Central. And the VoxLab will be happening Friday evening. So we will set an official time, but I just want to give you guys a general idea. It'll be Friday towards the evening. And if you guys are one of the Cult of TH3D YouTube members, I will be posting a Teams link for Saturday evening for us to all hang out. I've been trying to do those once a week. And I will see you guys on the next one. As always, happy printing.